So good morning, Constantijn. So for those of us who don't know, could you explain what is the digital agenda?
Okay, well, it's an agenda. Well, let's first say what's digital. In our view, we had to come up with one word explaining basically everything that has to do with ICT and services that are highly dependent on ICT. And it's an agenda because we're putting a series of actions against timelines, and we're putting up targets to which we need to deliver. So in that sense, it's digital and it's an agenda.
And what is your, and just so everyone understands the context of your questions and or the answers to my questions, what is your specific role in this?
Okay, the role of Nelly Kroes is to be, well, she put herself up there as accountable for this, for delivering this agenda. So she's the one you should go to if we don't achieve our targets. That's one. But on the ground, it means that we are pushing and pulling the stakeholder community, also member states, to deliver on this and to engage them in this agenda. We finance research. We set regulatory frameworks. We basically create the enabling environment for the deployment of ICTs.
So you mentioned member states.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to build a cohesive policy perspective at the EU level when the member states themselves have different views of digital agenda as it relates to their own laws, their own bureaucracies, their own attempts at this? How do you maintain the policy perspective in a cohesive way when the member states are still not necessarily viewing the issue the same way?
Well, that's basically, sorry, that's very loud. My microphone, maybe you can put it down a bit. I think that's what the agenda is for, is to set a top-line framework with targets where member states and other stakeholders can buy into. And so what the Commission does, the Commission proposes this, then asks member states to agree to it. And then we set up mechanisms for implementation.
So the commissioners are selected by the governments, by the member states,
yep.
But the parliament members are voted by the people. Mm-hmm. So is there an inherent conflict between this, and does that make it easier? And how do we get more members of the European Parliament to engage with the public using these technologies? Can the Commission influence this process?
Well, I think Parliament's probably ahead of the Commission in engaging with the public, but traditionally it's been difficult for European institutions to connect directly with the people because there's no European media. This obviously can change now. I mean, the internet does provide ways to directly interact with people, and not only through member state government, but directly. So, and I think we're the Parliament, but also the Commission is exploring ways how to do this best. I must say that it shouldn't be for the Commission to try to be popular. I think it's the main task is to, because we're not an elected body, as you pointed out, it's our duty to provide continuity. And so it's more important, I believe, to build trust, where open government actually plays a big role, and more in trust than in popularity. So when it's connecting to the people, I think what Europe and the European Commission should do best is to prove European added value and to provide continuity.
So Ms. Kroes is now beginning to blog and tweet herself.
Yep.
How's this being received? And you know, is it something that you see all the commissioners starting to do, or is it something that you know she's doing only because she's the commissioner in charge of the digital agenda?
Well, I think she's enjoying herself. I mean, she likes to play around in this domain. I think it is very important that she's in that domain because this is the space that she's also acting in, that she's regulating. So being there for her is as much a communications tool as an experiment to see what the connected world is like. So, but I don't know. I think the verdict is still out there. I mean, she does it to reach communities that she can't reach through other media. It's also a way to experiment. And I don't know if we have yet found the right way to do it. So it's good that everybody uses the variations of the various media and try to reach out and maybe experiment a bit. So I think we're still very much in the experimental phase.
And as this communication is being done, it's being done primarily in English. And so when you have all the different languages of Europe, and the cultural perspective of the language is different, the interpretation of the technology and its effect can be different. So is there any, I mean, how much do you take into account the fact that the translation isn't always so easy to, you know, what may be said in an English context doesn't necessarily translate perfectly in Italian, for example?
No, I think that's true. I don't know if we have fully captured that. We have a lot of traditional means of translation, and so all of our instruments, laws, and all of the documents are translated. But we find it difficult, even our websites, to add a button with certain companies that have branded translation products. So no, that's a problem.
Yeah. And is there also a problem in the notion that this technology is inherently being delivered by U.S. companies, and that there is a perspective that this is American influence over the European Union, or is there is there an understanding of the technology as being agnostic as far as where it comes from?
Yeah, I think we're agnostic to the degree. I mean, we're all working on with Microsoft and using Google and we're on Facebook. So I guess in that sense we don't care too much, but we are concerned, obviously, that we would like to see some European names in there. And when that's maybe a different domain. When we look in the innovation and also the research space, we are looking for actually analyzing the reasons why Europe finds it difficult to develop those kind of global companies. But that's a very different topic.
So when I was reading through the digital agenda, I noticed that there is a posture by the Commission now to embrace open data. And we just heard Alec speak about we gov, or we government. So tell us, how is the European Union currently, Commission, thinking about the use of open data? What are its advantages, and what are the disadvantages? What are the risks?
Well, I think the European Commission, strangely, might not be that known, but since the end of the 90s has an open data strategy, which is called the Reuse of Public Sector Information Directive. And it's not been enforced that well, and it depends on member states to transpose that legislation into their national context. And I was actually quite convinced yesterday evening at your dinner to learn how that piece of legislation has helped the UK government to come what is now known as its leading position in its open data strategy. So different member states have used that legislation in different ways. We've, from the end of the 90s, taken the position that this is very much a tool to unleash the information and to spur innovation. So it's been seen very much as an economic support activity. And now obviously we're learning much more about how it can actually support participatory government and empowerment of people. And I think with the tools that we have now, this is no longer something of big companies using data, but it's actually individuals being able to mash together services that we haven't been seeing before. And now with the mobile platforms, obviously this is going to excel.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about the role of the Commission in terms of regulation, and in the role of Commission to encourage participation, citizen participation. Because I'm not quite sure that the citizens of the EU realize that they are being in fact invited to participate, as opposed to waiting to hear what rules are going to be passed by the Commission. So is there a dynamic between the regulatory and the participatory?
I say the Commission is better at rules than at participation, still. And so we are learning that, and I don't think at this point in time we've found the right ways to engage with the people. Our processes are very difficult to engage in anyway. But when the digital agenda was passed, we did an active initiative to reach out and to go to all the member states and talk to civil society movements. So the senior management of the Commission working in this field, Nelly Kroes herself, her team, we all went to all the member states and talked different sessions we try to reach out to stakeholders in the member states, so to get closer, to kind of narrow the gap at the beginning of this strategy, and to involve them by means of communication, but also getting their feedback. But reaching out to say the people is still something which is I would say a bit difficult for the Commission. But we're working on it, and I think the open data strategy will be a main step in that direction. If we can really get the Commission to open up its own data sets and make them available, but also to support member states to do that and to make all the information across European governments available to all citizens. That's obviously going to be a major step. Though I don't know if that will lead to more engagement with what the Commission is doing, at least, because the Commission tends to remain in the background a bit. But I do think that would be a big force of good for empowerment in Europe.
But Constantijn, isn't it true also that many of the bureaucracies, the institutions of the EU Commission, and the people working in these institutions are afraid of open data? They're afraid of transparency because they're afraid that they're going to lose control of their agenda or of the way in which they are trying to get things done based on their experience. So what's the balance between open data and transparency as it relates to building trust and buy-in by commissioners, their staffs, who may not understand, who think that Twitter is a fad, who see their children on Facebook but don't use it themselves, don't understand the culture of technology, and yet everyone is pushing them to make data available, and they view it as a threat to their power. How do you overcome this?
Well, I should ask you. I mean, you had the experience in building these things. I think many people in the audience will have had experiences, so they probably are better informed than I am. I do think that this is not so much about achieving a balance; it's achieving a new way of working. And I think by demonstrating what can be done, you will start a movement of support. I don't say it's obvious. I think the point you raise are the critical points. You can add to that privacy, you can add to that a lot of other concerns that governments or politicians might have about going into this. But primarily, I think it's an organizational challenge where the people working with those data sets have been traditionally working with them, developing the services that now could be developed by others, basically. And giving up that power is something which is a cultural step as well. We all know that moving cultures is difficult, but we see that in all domains. I mean, it's not just in government. It's about it's the publishing world. It's about the music companies. Everybody is facing the challenge of this digital world, which makes the intermediates, or the ones that formally own the content and the data, which makes them nervous because they will have other players using it.
But that's my point. I mean, they're nervous, so they may have a knee-jerk reaction and create new rules and regulations to try to maintain control, copyright being a perfect example. And yet, so do we run a danger where the reaction, either by naivete or fear, is going to limit the amount of innovation that can happen in the future? How do we overcome this protective perspective of the existing systems?
When people see a benefit, and I think the benefit also in a lot of the new media, where you can't say that politicians were the first to embrace new media, but now they're all twittering and even sometimes maybe too much. But everybody's twittering and everybody's on Facebook trying to reach out. This is new. Wouldn't have been the same case about 4 years ago. I think if you show the benefit of cost savings, better government, doing government in a different way, engaging people, creating more trust in government, all of those benefits, then governments will move in the direction, and then we'll have the discussion as well about what maybe the downsides of all of this is. I think we shouldn't put all the negative things up front. We should get the development going. which also means you'll get the discussion going about what is good about this and what is not, what is responsible use of data, what is not, and what do we as a society and the government as the main public actor in that society, what do we think is desirable and what not. So there will still be a role, there will be new dialogues, new debates about where the boundaries are of this development, but we don't know yet, so we better start getting into it. And I think gatherings like this and your role and some of the leading politicians. I mean, Obama himself has done a great, I think, great advocacy work for introducing more information technologies and social media into the domain of politics. And as we just heard, I mean, the domain which is probably the least apt for this is foreign policy, and you're seeing that the US is actually engaging social media in foreign policy, means that even the impossible can be done.
Yeah, and maybe we can save money in the process, which might be the best in a time of crisis, to convince those who don't want to participate that the benefit of saving money is the reason why we should be looking at these efficiencies.
I think the best thing for a politician is to say, we're doing the same things we always did, but we're doing them better at lesser cost.
So are you tweeting yourself?
I'm not tweeting. No. Nelly is, but I'm not tweeting. No. I'm on social media, but tweeting, I think, is not is not my thing.
We have lessons, by the way, a workshop afterwards.
No. I know. I've got an account, but I just don't do it.
Okay. Please thank Constantijn for joining us, and we look forward to. Thank you.